Ella had always been fascinated by abandoned buildings. Her interest in them had led her to explore all sorts of places, from factories to schools to hospitals. But there was one place that had always intrigued her more than any other: the old asylum on the outskirts of town. Rumors had circulated for years about the abandoned asylum. People claimed they had seen strange figures moving around inside, heard voices and screams emanating from the building at night. Some even claimed to have witnessed apparitions, spectral figures lurking in the shadows. Despite the rumors, Ella was determined to explore the asylum for herself. She had been planning the trip for weeks, gathering supplies and doing research on the building's history. She had even convinced her friend, Alex, to come with her. The two arrived at the asylum just before sunset. The building loomed before them, its dark brick facade seeming to absorb what little light remained in the sky. Evie crawled up the walls and choked the windows, adding to the sense of foreboding. The front doors of the asylum were boarded up, but Ella had come prepared. She produced a crowbar from her backpack and set to work prying the boards off. With a grunt, she wrenched the last board free, and the two stepped inside. The air inside was thick with dust and the smell of decay. The walls were stained and peeling, and the floor creaked ominously beneath their feet. Ella felt a thrill of excitement mixed with fear. This was exactly what she had been looking for. The two began exploring the ground floor, poking their heads into rooms and testing doors. Most of the rooms were empty, stripped of anything of value or interest. But as they made their way down a long, shadowed corridor, they heard a strange sound. It was a low, guttural growling noise coming from one of the rooms at the end of the corridor. Ella and Alex exchanged a look and slowly made their way toward the sound. As they approached, the noise grew louder and more intense. It sounded almost like an animal snarling and growling with increasing aggression. The door to the room was partially ajar, and Ella could see a faint red glow emanating from within. With a sudden rush of adrenaline, she pushed the door open, revealing a scene of unimaginable horror. In the center of the room was a figure, hunched over and snarling like a wild animal. Its eyes glowed red in the dim light, and its body seemed to writhe and twist unnaturally. Its skin was gray and mottled, and its limbs were twisted and gnarled. Ella and Alex stood frozen in terror, unsure of what to do. But as the figure slowly began to turn its head toward them, they knew they had to get out of there. They turned and ran, sprinting down the shadowed corridor and back the way they had come. The growling noise echoed behind them, getting louder and more intense as they ran. Just as they reached the front doors of the asylum, the growling stopped. They burst through the doors and collapsed outside, gasping for air and shaking with fear. As they caught their breath, they heard a low, chuckling sound coming from inside the asylum. It was a sound that would haunt them both for years to come, a reminder of the horror that lurked in the shadows of the old asylum. From that day forward, Ella never again entered an abandoned building. She knew that the lure of the unknown was too great a risk, and that some places were better left unexplored. But the memory of the shadowed corridor and the horror that lurked within would stay with her forever, a reminder of the dangers that lay hidden in the shadows. As time passed, Ella tried her best to forget about the shadowed corridor, but it lingered in the back of her mind like a dark cloud. She often found herself waking up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, with the image of the shadowy figure burned into her mind. She couldn't shake the feeling that it was still out there waiting for its next victim.